Alex Eala has finally lost. After an incredible run of 7 straight wins, the young Filipino tennis star has finally been stopped. And the way it happened was brutal. Belinda Bencic defeated Alex Eala 6-4, and then 6-love, in the round of 16 at the Canadian Open. Just like that, Alex Eala's impressive run in Toronto was over. But here is the real question. Is this actually bad news for Alex Eala? Or could this loss become an important part of her rise? Because just a few days ago, Alex Eala was celebrating the biggest singles victory of her career. She had just won her first WTA singles title in Washington. She had defeated Jessica Pegula in the final. She had made history for the Philippines. And then she arrived in Toronto and kept winning. 7 straight victories. A new career high ranking. And suddenly, the entire tennis world was talking about Alex Eala. So today, we need to look beyond one difficult loss. We need to understand what happened in Toronto. We need to look at what Alex Eala has achieved over the last few weeks. And most importantly, we need to ask what happens next. Because this could be the beginning of an even bigger chapter in her career. Let's go back to Washington. Alex Eala entered the tournament looking for something she had never achieved before. A WTA singles title. She had already shown that she could compete with some of the best players in the world. But winning an entire WTA tournament is completely different. It requires consistency. It requires physical strength. It requires mental strength. And it requires the ability to win difficult matches even when things are not going your way. Eala did exactly that. She kept moving forward. And eventually, she reached the final. Waiting for her was Jessica Pegula. Pegula was the top seed. She was the experienced player. She was the favorite. And Eala was the young challenger from the Philippines. The final started well for Pegula. She won the first set 6-4. Eala was suddenly 1 set away from losing the biggest match of her career. But instead of giving up, she fought back. She won the second set 6-4. And then something incredible happened. The third set belonged completely to Alex Eala. She won it 6-love. She had turned the entire match around. And when the final point was over, Alex Eala had won her first WTA singles title. It was a historic moment. She became the first Filipino player to win a WTA tour-level singles title. And suddenly, everything changed. Her ranking went up. Her confidence went up. And the expectations around her became much bigger. After the Washington title, Eala reached a career high ranking of number 20 in the world. Think about that. Just a short time earlier, she was still trying to establish herself on the WTA tour. Now she was a top 20 player. And there was almost no time to celebrate. Because the next tournament was already waiting. Toronto. The National Bank Open. A major WTA event. And instead of slowing down after winning her first title, Eala kept going. She continued to win. Match after match. She reached the round of 16. And her confidence was clearly growing. But the road was not easy. One of the toughest moments came against Katie McNally. It was a long and difficult match. Eala eventually won 6-3, lost the second set 7-5, and then came back to win the final set 6-4. But during that match, she also had an ankle scare. That is important. Because Alex Eala was not entering the next match completely fresh. She had just won a WTA title. She had traveled to another tournament. She had already played several matches. She had gone through a difficult battle with McNally. And now she had to face Belinda Bencic. Bencic is not an ordinary opponent. She is an experienced player. She has played on the biggest stages in tennis. She knows how to handle pressure. And she knows how to punish even small mistakes. So when Eala walked onto the court against Bencic, this was always going to be a huge test. The first set was competitive. Eala fought hard. She tried to stay close. But Bencic eventually won the first set 6-4. At that point, The match was still alive. Eala only needed to find a way back into the contest. But the second set went completely differently. Bencic took control. Eala struggled to find her rhythm. Her shots were not having the same impact. And Bencic continued to put pressure on her. Game after game. Point after point. Eventually, Bencic closed out the second set 6-0. The match was over. Alex Eala was out of the Canadian Open. Her 7-match winning streak had come to an end. And for some fans, that score might look shocking. 6-4. 6-love. But one match does not erase everything Eala has achieved. In fact, the bigger picture is much more positive. Just look at what happened before this loss. Alex Eala won her first WTA singles title. She defeated Jessica Pegula. She reached a career-high ranking of number 20. She immediately went to another major tournament. She won more matches. She reached the round of 16. And she showed that she can compete at a very high level. That is not failure. That is progress. And there is another important factor. Fatigue. Professional tennis is physically demanding. Players travel from city to city. They play matches almost every day. There is very little time to recover. And Eala had just completed an extremely intense stretch. She won Washington. Then she traveled to Toronto. Then she played more matches. She also had an ankle scare. And eventually, she faced an experienced opponent who was playing very good tennis. So perhaps the loss was simply a reminder. Even the best young players need time to recover. And that is exactly what Eala now appears ready to do. After her Canadian Open exit, she indicated that she wants to take a short break. She wants to rest. She wants to recharge. And then she will prepare for the next challenge. That next challenge is Cincinnati. And Cincinnati could be very interesting. Because Eala will arrive there as a completely different player. She is no longer just a young prospect. She is now a top 20 player. She is now a WTA champion. And opponents know her name. They know what she can do. They know how aggressive she can be. They know how dangerous she becomes when she finds her rhythm. That changes everything. When you are an unknown player, opponents may underestimate you. But when you become a top 20 player, nobody underestimates you anymore. Every opponent prepares for you. Every match becomes more difficult. And that is the next challenge for Alex Eala. Can she handle the pressure? Can she stay consistent? Can she recover quickly after difficult matches? Can she continue beating experienced players? And can she perform at the same level week after week? Those questions are going to define the next stage of her career. And there is another huge tournament waiting just around the corner. The US Open. Eala has already made the main draw entry list for the 2026 US Open. That means another massive opportunity is coming. And this is where the story becomes really exciting. Imagine Alex Eala arriving in New York after everything that has happened. She will have experienced winning her first WTA title. She will have experienced becoming a top 20 player. She will have experienced the pressure of being one of the most talked about young players in tennis. She will also have experienced losing. And that last part could be just as important. Because great players do not win every match. They lose. They struggle. They have bad days. The difference is what they do afterward. Do they become frustrated? Do they lose confidence? Or do they learn from the experience and come back stronger? For Alex Eala, that is the biggest question right now. And so far, there is plenty of reason to believe she can handle it. She has already shown incredible mental strength. Remember the Washington final. She lost the first set to Pegula. She was under pressure. But she did not panic. She fought back. She won the second set. Then she dominated the third. That is the kind of mentality that young players need if they want to reach the highest level. And now she needs to bring that same mentality to the next tournament. Forget the 7-match winning streak. Forget the Canadian Open loss. Forget the ranking for a moment. Start again. One match at a time. One opponent at a time. That is how tennis works. And that is how careers are built. There is also something else happening around Alex Eala. The attention is growing. Filipino fans are following her everywhere. Her matches are attracting more viewers. More people around the world are learning her name. And that is fantastic for Philippine tennis. But attention also creates pressure. Every victory creates bigger expectations. Every loss creates headlines. Every ranking increase creates more pressure. Eala is entering a new phase of her career. She is no longer the player nobody knows. Now people know who she is. And that means the challenge becomes even bigger. But it also means the opportunity becomes bigger. Because now she has a platform. She has confidence. She has experience. And she has already proven that she can win at the WTA level. So what should fans expect from Cincinnati? Nobody can guarantee a title. Nobody can guarantee a semifinal. Nobody can guarantee another long winning streak. And that is not the point. The important thing is how Eala responds. If she comes back rested and confident, we could see another strong run. If she loses early, that also does not mean her momentum is gone. This is professional tennis. One tournament does not define a career. One match does not define a player. And one difficult second set does not erase a historic title. That is why the 6-love score against Bencic should not become the entire story. The real story is the journey that brought Eala to that court. A young player from the Philippines. A player who kept improving. A player who defeated Jessica Pegula in a major final. A player who won her first WTA singles title. A player who reached the top 20. A player who then continued winning in Toronto. And finally, a player who discovered that there is still another level to reach. Maybe that is the most important lesson from this loss. Alex Eala has already reached a new level. Now she has to learn how to stay there. That is much harder. Winning one tournament is difficult. Winning consistently is even harder. Staying healthy is harder. Handling pressure is harder. And doing all of that while traveling around the world is one of the biggest challenges in professional sport. But this is exactly where Eala is now. And that is why the next few weeks are so important. First comes rest. Then Cincinnati. And after that, all eyes will turn toward New York. The US Open. Another major stage. Another opportunity. Another chance to show what Alex Eala can do against the best players in the world. So yes, Alex Eala has finally fallen. Her 7-match winning streak is over. Her Canadian Open campaign is finished. But the bigger story is not about the loss. The bigger story is about how far she has already come. 2 weeks ago, she was celebrating the biggest singles title of her career. Now she is a top 20 player. And she is preparing for the next challenge. That is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. The question is no longer whether Alex Eala belongs on the WTA tour. She has already answered that question. Now the question is how far she can go. Can she win more WTA titles? Can she break even higher into the rankings? Can she make a deep run at a Grand Slam? And one day, can she become one of the biggest names in women's tennis? We do not know the answer yet. But we do know one thing. Alex Eala is moving forward. The winning streak ended. But the journey continues. And if her recent run has shown us anything, it is this. You should never count Alex Eala out after one loss. Because the next time she walks onto the court, she may have something even more dangerous than a 7-match winning streak. She may have a lesson learned from defeat. And that could make Alex Eala even stronger. So now, all eyes are on Cincinnati. The rest is up to Alex Eala. And the tennis world is waiting to see what happens next.